Hello my dear friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara, and today we're going to be going over how entities attach to people, to individuals, even to places sometimes. Sometimes you can see entity attachments around certain establishments, stores, places. So we're going to be getting into all of that in this video today. Now, as usual, everything that comes through in this video is based on my own personal experience, observations, research, sometimes even. So you guys can take what resonates, leave behind what does not. I'm not saying this is the one and only ultimate truth. You will have to develop discernment, especially as we move through this journey in the higher frequencies. You are going to have to eventually develop discernment to see what pieces of information resonate with you. And you guys can even see maybe some things that I mentioned in this video, how it feels energetically within your body when you're engaging with certain energies. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. A lot of this is closely connected to soul fragments. So I will put that video in the description box below. I do have a few different videos where I've already gone over this topic, but I figured let's compile it all into one video so you guys can kind of have it all in one spot. But again, if you guys are interested in learning more, all of that is going to be in the description box below. So how does an entity attach to a person? Well, first of all, what is an entity? An entity is usually a darker energy, a lower vibrational energy, and I'm not trying to put fear out there. It's just like these things do exist. And a lot of the time you are going to be seeing these things, especially the higher up you go in frequencies, the more you clear your own vessel, heal, I guess is another term that we can use as well. And that's a huge theme in the collective these days, which is great. And it's amazing because it's like whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, you're actually helping yourself kind of get rid of these energies, not only within yourself, but through other people as well, because these energies can also come through other people. And more often than not, you guys will see that these energies are going to target you through other individuals. And a lot of the time, that's connected to your own inner wounding. So a lot of this is connected to soul fragments, like I mentioned a little bit earlier. So what is a soul fragment? Basically, when a person goes through a traumatic experience and they don't clear this energy, or maybe you're not aware of it, anytime you have a trigger, it's triggering you back into that traumatic experience is basically what that is. You're going to have to dig deep to see what is this experience, what took place, why are you being triggered, so on and so forth. So anytime you have any specific trigger, it's taking you back to that traumatic experience. So everyone can clear these and everyone can heal these. I do truly genuinely believe that. And the more that you clear these, you're kind of collecting those soul fragments that have left in a way your body. Now, if you don't want to look at it from like a soul fragments perspective, in the sense where it's like, you know, there is an aspect of you that's missing, you can just kind of look at it as your aura is being opened up, is really what that is. So when your aura is opened, that is when the entities can come through and latch onto you. And a lot of the time, these entities are going to kind of be whispering energetically in your ear. It's like a nudge, or it's like a compulsion sometimes. Another thing that I do want to mention in this video is that I'm not a psychologist by any means, or a medical practitioner either. So those are all of my disclaimers right there. So this is kind of how it works. And it's like you will see if you're falling into some form of compulsion, that's usually the entity that is kind of nudging you to go into that direction. Now, another thing that I'm going to add as a disclaimer in this video is I do not want to absolve anybody of any responsibility of their actions throughout their lives, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's all about learning ourselves, self-awareness, and also learning others and seeing who do we allow into our energetic space as well. Once again, tying it back to that whole concept of discernment, because the more that people develop discernment and self-awareness and clear themselves and like really learn who they are, you'll be able to protect your own energy, close up that aura, and you'll be able to protect your energy from external entities as well coming through people. So what are some ways that these entities can come through? So there are several different ways. One of the ways that I mentioned already is going to be through your wounding. So let's say you have a trigger. When you have a trigger, you can kind of look at it as a little crack in your aura. So the entity comes through, hooks into you, into your wounding, into your soft spot, and kind of operates through you in this way. So like, let's say your wounding is abandonment. That's a big one in the collective. If you guys want to learn more about the collective wounds, you guys can check out my Exploring the Chakra series, and you guys can go through the lower three chakras, even the heart chakra as well these days with grief as well. You guys can go over the lower three chakras: root, sacral, solar plexus. Those are the biggest wounds in the collective, and that is really what these entities hook into. These are collective wounds. You guys can even look at it as generational, or just like humans overall as a species, especially abandonment. It is a big one because back in the day, way back in the day, the biggest punishment for people was to be either ostracized from the community or to be kind of made like a laughing stock, kind of in the middle, you know, in like the gladiator times where everyone was kind of watching you and so on and so forth. So that's still embedded within humans overall. Like that is the deep collective wound, but now we have different types of abandonment as well. We have emotional abandonment, we have neglect, We have abandonment overall, like physical abandonment. There's so many different types of abandonment. So if we look at this wound, for example, okay, so let's say you have an abandonment wound within you. And the abandonment wound can also be closely connected to codependency as well. So this is important to keep in mind. A lot of the time you'll see this within people when they always need somebody to do something with, or they don't want to be alone, or they don't want to be on their own. And then it's this, you have this abandonment within you. Either you're being controlled in one way, shape, or form, because it's like your actions are now kind of playing out because of the wound or the wounding within yourself. So for example, you don't want to be alone ever. You don't want to eat in a restaurant by yourself, or like you don't want to let go of that friendship or that partner because you don't want to be alone, like the fear of being alone, for example. Or you might fear losing someone, so you like try to control them. You control all of their actions. You're like looking through their phone, making sure they don't leave you, and then inadvertently that situation ends up manifesting because energetically you have now pushed them away. So there's so many ways that this energy could play out, but you guys can kind of look at it as an entity energetically that's operating through you, that is getting you to go into this energy to do these sort of behaviors, because it's like it's something that needs to be healed within you. Now that's one way that it can play out through you. Now the other way that it can play out is through a person. So what's really, really interesting, even if we look at like narcissistic tendencies, which that is a whole conversation of its own, because a lot of the time narcissists also have entities operating through them. I actually have a video on that as well. I'm going to put it in the description box below as well. It is called Narcissism on the Earth Plane. I believe it is a metaphysical video. So once again, these are all metaphysical explanations and perspectives. So I'll get into that in just a second. So like, let's say someone has like narcissistic qualities, and these days a lot of people use these terms, especially with the internet and so on and so forth. But let's say it's like a very low vibrational person who is also deeply, deeply unhealed. Well, in their case, a lot of the time these people can unconsciously pick up on maybe a wound that you may have. So they hook into that wound within you, and then they're going to kind of be controlling you as well. So that is also another entity sort of operation taking place as well. So keep this in mind. You will see a lot of the time, especially when you start to elevate your frequency and you start to heal, a lot of these characters are going to come into your life to try to pull you back. At the end of the day, we are on a plane of duality. We are in the midst of a spiritual WAR, okay, light versus dark. I mean, that is like the oldest battle from like the beginning of time. So it's like, it's going to be really important to catch these things. So first of all, you're not controlled, you're not manipulated, and you kind of don't go into like these darker situations. And like a lot of the time, you guys will know if there's an entity present, if it's causing chaos, if it's causing drama, if it's causing just like darkness in a situation. And again, I'm not absolving anybody from their responsibility, but what I find really, really interesting is like, you will see a lot of religious scriptures, like the origins of it all before it kind of got you through this intense patriarchal lens, shadow patriarchal lens that it is today with religions. But if you look at the root of it all, it's interesting because a lot of religions were trying to teach these things to people, but somewhere along the way with the shadow patriarchy and just like the broken telephone of it all, it's all been skewed into like a very, very shadow perspective. But if you go and read the origins of it all, the spiritual aspects of it all, or if you're able to read between the lines and not look at it from a shadow patriarchal lens, you will see that a lot of these religions were trying to teach people about entities and so on and so forth operating through people. So it's like an entity can't really operate through a person unless you let this energy into your life. So the thing is, how do you let it in? So we talked about the whole concept of wounding, being wounded, so it coming through yourself or another person. So you guys will kind of know, because like these attachments energetically, the way it feels like to me is almost like a compulsion. Like it's almost like this, like you can't control this behavior. It's almost like you're fighting this behavior within yourself. So it's like, again, this is why self-awareness is going to be super, super important. It's currently raining outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the video, but it is here for dramatic effect. So continuing now, other ways that entities can hook into people and launch on. Addiction is going to be a huge one. Now, addiction is a whole conversation of its own. Maybe I'll make another video on that on a different day. If you guys are interested, let me know below. I have spoken on it here and there in my lives as well. So I'm pretty sure if you guys are interested, there's going to be like the titles in my lives. I do have a playlist for lives. So I have spoken about addiction entities as well. Addiction is very, very complex because it's like, it's so broad. It is on a huge spectrum. You have something going from like, let's say a shopping addiction, or just like even a compulsion. Let's say like you're checking your phone all the time, or like you have to message someone because like you can't wait for them to message you. Like it's that compulsive in a way behavior, all the way until like the extreme version where people go into substances and substance abuse. Now, what's really interesting with this is a lot of the time addiction, once again, is going to be rooted from some form of trauma. Just my own opinion, once again, not a psychologist psychologist or anything of the sort, just what I have observed through time, through people, and so on and so forth. So addiction is going to be connected to some form of trauma. So it's like when you're going into this compulsive behavior, in a way, it's like it's soothing you, but it's like you have to see what is this energy soothing, or is it masking something, or is there an emotion there that you don't know or you're not aware of. So that's another video that I'm going to be making as well. It's going to be on emotions, because the whole issue I find on this earth plane is like people are disconnected from their emotions, they're disconnected from their feelings, and in a way, when you're disconnected from your emotions and your heart space, you're going to be disconnected from the God source, is really what that is. So a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot, up until this point, at least a lot of people are healing, which is great. But a lot of people are also stuck in their lower 3 chakras. And this is the whole issue here, because when you're in your lower 3 chakras, in a way you can kind of look at it as like you're behaving out of your primal instincts, out of the animalistic instincts, out of survival. And this is all done by design, is really what that is, because it's like it keeps people stuck in that behavior and in those patterns. And these patterns are what pull you down, okay? But you kind of have to, once again, work on that within yourself to go into those higher chakras and into the higher vibrations and so on and so forth. And it's really inner work. At the end of the day, there's nothing that nobody can do or say to really do it for you. You're gonna have to do it for yourself. And it's like people like these videos and so on and so forth are here to spark thoughts and maybe plant seeds and maybe bring certain things to the surface. But once you receive the information, you'll have to transmute that energy within yourself. And like when those moments come up where you feel the pull to act in a certain way or behave in a certain way, you're going to have to figure out how to not act in that way. And I feel like this is how we heal personally, because it's like when you see that pattern coming up, you'll have to basically not do that particular thing, what you would usually do, your pattern. And this is in all realms. I know I started talking about addiction, but this is really for everything in terms of like having just like a bad habit and so on and so forth. So if you don't act in that direction, let's say it's like the abandonment moon and it's like someone hasn't responded to you or so on and so forth, and you feel that urge to just like get their attention and you're like messaging them so many times, well, in that moment, you'll have to catch yourself and not do that particular thing. It's really what that is. And it's like, it's hard to say because a lot of these woundings stem from different places. So it's like, it's not really a one size fits all or like a quick fix or anything of that sort. You'll have to really reflect and be like, where is this coming from? So going back to the addiction. So in terms of the addiction, once again, it's connected to trauma. So there's some sort of trauma that takes place here that usually catapults you into addiction. I find that the more extreme versions of addiction in terms of substances and substance abuse, once again, my own opinion and trigger warning, I do feel like a lot of those are connected to sexual aid. Hope you guys can connect the pieces there, because addiction overall is located in the sacral chakra. So I've personally made that connection for some individuals, but it could be something covert as well that has taken place in the sexual arena as well. Maybe it was commentary and so on and so forth, something that made you feel uncomfortable energetically. Now, another thing as well with addiction, it could also be like, let's say you're someone who's codependent or it's like a love addiction. It could be, let's say, like a lack of love in your upbringing as well. That could be pulling you into that direction. Or once again, abandonment could be connected to this. Sometimes I see the sacral and the solar plexus connected to each other as well. So it really could be any of these things. But the thing is, once again, you're gonna have to explore within yourself to see. Addiction really is on that range. But keep in mind, it is located in that sacral chakra. So it could be anything to do with the sacral chakra that took place. Even let's say like sex addiction is another one, or even like, let's say corn with a P addiction is another one, or even like scrolling constantly through Instagram, like looking at images and getting like those dopamine hits of people. I'm kind of speaking between the lines here, so I'm sure you guys are going to catch my drift with that one as well. That could also be an addiction, and again, you'd have to explore the sacral chakra and see what's going on in the sacral chakra, because that pulls you down is basically what that is, and you want to go up into the higher chakras. So now going back to the entities, so what I've noticed is like in terms of the sacral chakra and even like pleasures in life, it's like obviously you want to have a healthy sacral chakra and enjoy life and so on and so forth. I just find that as soon as something goes into like a compulsive behavior, or if it goes into like that addictive pattern, or if it goes into like the masking behavior, like once again, you'll have to explore to see which one of these it is. But that's when an entity has hooked into your energetic field, because the entity is now going to continue that compulsion is really what that is. And it's like when you continue doing something compulsively, you're opening yourself up. This is just something that I've observed. So it's like when you open yourself up, the dark energy comes through and it latches into your energetic field. Now the thing is, in terms of entities, like the smallest thing throughout your day could open you up energetically. And like it's hard to say, because you're really going to have to learn your own energy to know what's your energy and when has something hooked into your energetic field. So it's like, even like, let's say you're drinking coffee all the time and you're depending on coffee for life force energy. Well, once again, you're going to have to ask yourself and be like, well, why am I depending on the coffee for life force energy? Like, why am I not getting enough sleep? Because the thing is, this is a whole other conversation of its own as well, because it's like with coffee, for example, it's like you drink so much coffee, you're depending on it for life force energy to keep you awake throughout the day. And it's like, if you have a little bit of coffee, that's fine. This is what I mean. It's like all about things in moderation and knowing what works with your body. But if it's like you're depending on it now, once again, there's that dependent energy. You're depending on it for life force energy. You're in this cycle of like not getting enough sleep in the nighttime. You don't sleep enough. It opens you up energetically. And now you are opened once again because you didn't sleep properly. And it's like now, once again, the energy can hook into your energetic field. Now, the thing is, I understand there's different circumstances for people. Like sometimes you can't sleep. Sometimes you have to work multiple jobs, so on and so forth. But like having the awareness, once again, that it's like, okay, I didn't sleep enough, so I'm more energetically sensitive. Another term you guys can use, or like sometimes the way that I speak about it with my friends as well, is like we call it porous, energetically porous. So sometimes when you don't get enough sleep, for example, you can be energetically porous, like open energetically. Or if you're really, really stressed, or if it's like, again, the stress is affecting your sleep. And it's interesting because it's like, if you look at the way that this world is built, it's built to keep people in this overall energetic state, stuck in their lower chakras. But this is why you have to energetically fight it, is really, really what that is, internally and within, to not be stuck in the lower 3 chakras, to try to go up, is really what that is, into the heart space, into the heart chakra. Just having that awareness, because it's like, it can be more energetically open, like I mentioned, or even sensitive. And then it's like, and by the way, when I say sensitive, I'm not talking about it in like a negative term. I know a lot of the time this like term has such a negative connotation to it. It's just like you're energetically open, is really what that is. And being aware that when your energetic guard is down, you could be more easily irritable or like triggered. That's how that entity or the entities are going to hook into either you or through another person to come at you. And it's like your reaction, let's say you were like 150% feeling great, you would react differently in that particular moment. And then it causes this whole chaos moment once again. Maybe causes an argument between you and your loved one, your partner, your family member, so on and so forth. So this is another way that these entities can hook in. I hope you guys are kind of like following and getting the vibe here, that basically anytime some sort of chaos is coming through, because entities and darker energies want to isolate people. The darker energies, the lower energies, lower vibrational energies, entities, whatever term you guys want to use, they always want to isolate you, keep you on your own, keep you away from your loved ones. They want to cause chaos in your relationships, in your friendships, marriages, partnerships, so on and so forth. With that being said, if something is toxic, you want to leave that situation. So it's once again up to you to see with your discernment, is this a toxic situation or is this a lower vibrational energy that is trying to isolate you from your loved ones? So this is the whole thing to understand, because it's like when you're isolated and you're on your own and you don't have any loved ones around you, well, in that case, either easier to control, manipulate, end up in darker situations. And it's like this whole cycle is really what that is. So hope you guys are following. So that is another way that these darker energies can latch onto you guys and hook into your energetic field and kind of isolate you and get you to be on your own, be away, and in like vulnerable situations and circumstances. Another way that these darker energies can latch on and hook into people, the darker lower vibrational energies, is going to be through substances. So it's going to be through substances, and a lot of the time it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be any sort of substances. I kind of already talked about coffee a little bit if you're like in that addictive pattern with coffee. Now the thing is, everyone has the free will to do what they want, but this is something that you guys are going to have to gauge within yourselves and see how do you feel if you have the substance, if you don't have the substance, if you go out and you drink, and if you go out and you don't drink, or whatever, if you do the drugs and so on and so forth. It's going to be opening up your energetic field, lowering your defenses, and especially now in combination, let's say with a wounding, with a trigger, so on and so forth, the energy is down, the entity comes through, it's easier to enter your vessel. It can create like a whole chaotic situation. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, like let's say you go out in the nighttime and like let's say it's a club or a bar or wherever it is, you guys will see as the night progresses, the more that people drink, the more it goes into like that darker energy, like the more of like a likelihood there is, let's say, for a fight to break out somewhere or for some sort of chaos to come through. So this is how you guys can see this whole concept of like chaos playing out, and this is now through the substances aspect of things as well. Now another thing too, you will see, especially people who maybe have an addiction in terms of substances, this addiction, darker energy, substances, and so on and so forth, in a way the person has ended up isolated. So keep this in mind. Here's that whole theme of like these darker energies, entities, all of these lower vibrational beings want to isolate people, separate them, cause chaos, maybe ruin the relationships, and so on and so forth around them. The thing is, I understand, especially if we're talking about addiction, it's a little bit more complex because it's like you can't really help someone who like doesn't know that they have an issue and so on and so forth. I absolutely understand that, but this is just really to put awareness out there of like, if it does go into that extreme direction, this is what's actually energetically happening behind the scenes. And once again, when someone does substances, it's like you're not yourself. It's like there's this energy that's operating through you. So that's why you'll see in some religions they talk about not drinking alcohol or alcohol being negative. I'm sure you guys have heard like the whole concept of spirits. It's this, okay? It's all substances because it's like it energetically opens you up. That's the bottom line here with all of these things. It's like you're energetically opened for the entity to come through and to operate through you. So it's interesting because you guys will see when people kind of shift in and out, because you'll see like certain people who have multiple, let's say, entities operating through them. They have like their divine version when everything's great. Then maybe they get triggered and like their whole demeanor changes, and like that's like the dark aspect of them that's operating through. At the end of the day, the entity that has entered the person's vessel is up to the person to clear that and get that out of their energetic vessel. So it's really interesting to see because like back in the day with churches and so on and so forth, they used to have exorcisms, and it's like a lot of these things like have been kind of like labeled as like old or olden day, or like we moved past that, but it's not true. It's like very, very prevalent, and it's like right now it's like more than ever there is a lot of darkness on this earth plane because there's a lot of unprocessed trauma. That's what it all comes down to. A lot of unprocessed things, trauma, people are fragmented, people have identified a lot with their egos as well, or like what society wants of them or what their family wants of them, and so on and so forth. And it's challenging sometimes when you've like created a huge identity with the ego or like an expectation of you, because you don't really know who you are either. And it's like if that gets shattered, it's hard. People go through an ego death, and not everyone can really cope with having an ego death. We're kind of going through this time right now where a lot of people are being forced to be their true selves, really get in tune with their true selves. A lot of issues within people when they're super, super unhappy or just like not satisfied within their lives do stem from that whole concept of like really having identified with the ego or the expectations or like what they thought the world wanted for them and so on and so forth, versus going with their heart space. That's really what it all comes down to. I know it sounds very like maybe cliche, like following your heart and listening to your heart and so on and so forth, but this is really what it all is, because when you're in tune with your heart space, you're in tune with your intuition and you're in tune with the feeling aspect of things. And then when you're in tune with the feeling aspect of things, in that case, you're always going to be led to where you're meant to go, is really what that is. And this is the whole thing. Like up until this point, it's very much been about the mind. It's very much been about logic. So some people have been really following that. And it's like the other people who don't follow the mind and the logic are kind of like looked at like, oh, like, why are you going in that direction? But it's like, the thing is like everyone has an internal compass at the end of the day. And it's great because we have things like astrology and all these tools to confirm that for ourselves, but it'll save people a lot of time. It'll save them a lot of grief. It'll save them a lot of energy, like the sooner that they start to get more in tune with their heart space. So now, one final way that entities can be transferred and entered into vessels, I have left it for the end. So we talked about the substances, we talked about the unhealed aspects, the unhealed wounding within people, which everything actually does stem from. It stems from the wounding, and that is how anything comes to play. And sometimes even unawareness actually for people, or just like survival up until this point, like we haven't been able to really have these conversations because it's been very much like a hamster wheel type of energy. So the final way, or just like another one of the ways until I discover more ways and maybe make a new video in the future, but another one of the ways and the final way in this video that I'm going to be mentioning is going to be through sexual energy. This has to be a video of its own because there's so much to say and so much to talk about when it comes to sexual energy. People are way too open with their sexual energy, way too free with their sexual energy, and this is the way that a lot of these darker energies and lower vibrational energies get transferred between people, is really, really what that is. I know sexuality is a very, very broad topic. I know up until this point there's maybe been a lot of shame around sexuality. Interestingly enough, there's been a lot of mixed messages around sexuality actually, because you have shame in some places or areas of the world, or even cultures, or through religions, or even just like through societal programming. But then you actually have hypersexualization as well. I talk about this in my sacral chakra video. So it really sends like a mixed message around sexuality, which is like, then the question here is like, why is it so targeted, is really, really what that is. Like, what could we be doing with this energy if it isn't so targeted with all of these mixed messages and so on and so forth. So the thing is, sexual energy is really, really powerful. It's literally how you bring through a soul from the other side. This is important to understand. You're literally pulling another soul from the other side to bring it through into this physical reality. Like, that's really the basis of sexual energy. So it's like, what else could you be doing with this energy if it was used in a positive sense, if it wasn't sprinkled all over the place, or just like used in like a shadowy sense of just like short-term gratification and so on and so forth. So it's like people really need to be mindful with their sexual energy overall. And like this isn't just with other people, it's also with yourself. So it's like you have to explore and be like, are you going into an addictive pattern or behavior where it's like you're just doing this with yourself all the time? And here's that whole theme of like that addictive behavior. And it's like if you're going into that, you have to explore and be like, why am I going into this like addictive behavior? What is rooting this behavior? But overall, sexual energy is super powerful. It is the energy that brings through souls. You can literally create if you use your sexual energy properly. Create, and that's your creator's energy, it's your manifestor's energy. A lot of things are taking place in that sacral chakra, okay? Your emotions are down here, your vulnerability, and so on and so forth. So it's like if you open yourself up energetically, especially to another person, especially if you don't know that person, and again, you guys can explore this within yourselves and see how certain things feel, because that's ultimately how you can come to your own conclusions. It's like one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to actually feel it within your body. But to feel things and experience them through that feeling lens, you kind of have to get more in tune with the body overall and connected to the body. So that's the whole thing with sexual energy. Sometimes certain people, like let's say they're super attracted to you, especially like sexual attraction, they're like coming for you energetically. Sometimes the way that I see it is like this energy is like trying to get a piece of your light, is really what that is. Like that's the question here, especially if it's not mutual or like reciprocated. But sometimes I see it as like, is the energy actually being mutual and reciprocated? Like if someone's coming towards you with like an intense sexual attraction, is it actually that you're attracted to them as well? Or are you picking up on their sexual energy attraction? And is this like bouncing back and forth ping pong energetic game that's taking place where it's like you think you're sexually attracted to them, but it's actually them? So it's like you guys are really gonna have to learn yourselves to know like when you're actually into someone, or like is this person just coming towards you because they want to take your energy. This is another way that the energy can be siphoned, yes, but it can also be transmitted. So there could be like an entity operating through this person that comes through them and then latches into your energetic field. It's not doom and gloom. Absolutely, you can clear this. This is important to understand. You can always clear these energies out of you, and it's like you can clear any of these entities, lower vibrational energies out of you by just rebalancing yourself and rebalancing your energy and like really figuring out what that is for you. Is it going on a walk? Is it going into nature? But the thing is, you can't rebalance your energy without having known what your own core energy is first. That's the thing. And like a lot of these things are also connected to self-worth, knowing your worthiness, that strong solar plexus chakra that I talk about a lot of the time, because the more you strengthen your aura, it starts to expand outwards. And it's like when it expands outwards, you're magnetizing things, people, opportunities towards you, but you can also magnetize darker people towards you as well. This is important to keep in mind because once again, it is that plane of duality. So it's like, it's important to know like what are someone's intentions? Why are they coming towards you? And this could even be through like someone within your circle. It doesn't even just have to be like a sexual experience. Like it could even be like a friend who like really wants to be around you all the time. So it's like there's a lot of layers to this. The only way you'll ever be able to discern is by knowing yourself, knowing your energy, knowing your worth, healing, coming out of the lower chakras, knowing what your triggers are. What are those even soft spots? It doesn't even have to be like a shadow trigger where it's like you get upset about something. Sometimes you have a soft spot. Like sometimes you might feel bad for someone, for example. Like it could be like an empath type of thing if we look at like empath and narcissist types of dynamics. So it's important to keep in mind because it's kind of like it's spiritual hygiene. No one really talks about it, but these are some ways that the entities can hook into your energy field. You want to close up your aura. You close up your aura by raising your vibration. I know everybody says that these days and it sounds kind of like a cliche, but it really is this. And you can only raise your vibration when you know your own frequency. You can also raise it by doing things that you love, finding something that you're passionate about, exercise, going outside, being in nature, being around your loved ones. See, this is a contrast in the energy. It's like when you're around people that you love and your loved ones and your family and so on and so forth, it's like a protection bubble in a way. And honestly, your connection to source, God, and the creator is going to definitely help you and protect you as well. Whatever term you guys want to use, whoever you guys believe in, will feel it through your heart space. Now, another thing you guys can do as well is like you guys can telepathically communicate certain things. Like you guys can telepathically create blocks. If you guys sense like someone's entity or something coming through someone, or like maybe someone kind of having like the potential of being an energy vampire, you guys can telepathically say and like put that block just in your mind by just saying, I'm blocking this energy coming out of this person. Or it's like if you sense it coming out of the person, you can block it energetically. And it's like sometimes, unfortunately, like people, you might see goodness in them. Maybe there's like 1 to 2% of goodness within them, and like there's that light, but their shadows are intense or their darkness is intense. And sometimes for your own energetic protection, it might be best to not be around this person or people and just just like create energetic boundaries in that way. So boundaries are going to be super, super important if it is coming through other people. But overall, everything comes back down to ourselves at the end of the day. Even if there is someone that's a little bit shadowy in your life, if they're draining you, or maybe they're making kind of like passive aggressive comments or like jealousy comments, like again, any of these lower vibrational things that pull you down, like it's hard to explain because I feel everything in my own body. So I always know I feel it as like a hit in my solar plexus when someone is energetically pulling me down or trying to energetically pull me down, or like the intention, like the energetic intention behind what they said is something like passive aggressive or just like lower vibrational in that sense where they're trying to come at you. I always feel it in my solar plexus personally, like it pulls you down. And this is again why you're gonna have to learn your own frequency and learn your own vibration, because then you'll feel it within yourself. Energy doesn't lie. That's the whole thing at the end of the day. So it's like everyone feels energy is really what that is. It's just like, I think a lot of people aren't maybe in tune with it, or like they don't notice it, or they're too busy, or they're too distracted, whatever it is. But it's like, it'll help you, it'll equip you is really what that is. So these energy attachments, these entity attachments, first of all, don't come through you into your life and just like you're self-sabotaging and just like creating chaos for yourself within your life, or just like going into these lower vibrational energies. That's the first thing. The second thing is so it doesn't come through other people as well and come at you if you have elevated, let's say, your frequency to a certain point. So one more quick little thing that I do want to slip into this video as well are entity attachments to places. I personally feel them a lot around banks. I feel them a lot around clubs, around bars as well. So it depends on you as like a psychic intuitive person to see how you will feel these energies. But sometimes these entities are like lingering around certain places. Of course, it can be in like haunted areas, or like an area where there was a lot of chaos, or like sometimes like this would take us into a whole conversation about portals and how portals are opened up through like darker situations and so on and so forth. I'm trying to keep it very simple for you guys just to kind of get the idea. But the whole thing here is like certain places can also have entity attachments. Like let's say it's a club, like I was mentioning earlier, you go out and you're drinking, or a bar, the entities are kind of like waiting around the corner for like a person who's going to have their guard down, and then it enters the individual's vessel as well. So you can have this entity attached to you in this way as well by like just going somewhere. This is what I mean by like, sometimes it's not any of these things that I mentioned, or it's not anything that you're doing. It's just like the entity just kind of hooked into you because maybe you walk through a certain space, and you're going to have to learn to see how you can feel that within your body. I always feel it in my solar plexus chakra, because anytime you're being pulled down into the lower chakras, it's usually lower vibrational energy is really what that is. So you'll have to figure out how you can cleanse this energy within. It could be through maybe certain herbs, you guys can cleanse it, or maybe certain crystals, you guys can cleanse it, or just like overall going on a walk, listening to high vibrational music, going to nature, just to like get it out of your energetic system. Because it's like a lot of things on this earth plane are just like energy transference, I find. So it's like sometimes you hook into this energy, it's not even yours, and then it's like this energy maybe then makes you feel bad, and then you project it onto something. Like let's say you hooked into like a negative energy by walking through a place, and then it's like, because it's hooked into you, maybe there's like a fear that you have about something, and then it like feeds into that fear because you think that it's like that fear that's coming up, but it's actually the energy that's there within you that's pulling you into the lower vibration, and you're projecting it onto the fear. I really hope you guys are following. So that's another thing that can take place as well. So I do feel like I've officially covered all of the different types of entity attachments, how they can hook into your energy field. In this particular video, if I ever come across anything new, I will always make another video, but this is my video for now. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.